Welcome to another episode of the APWASI Wine Buzz. Our guest today is an accomplished and highly respected figure in the wine world. Publisher, director, the Tasting Panel magazine, and the Somm Journal, but so much more. Welcome to the show, Meridith May.
Thank you for having me.
It's a real pleasure having you, Meridith. There's so much to you, and your journey has been quite remarkable and extraordinary. You have an impressive legion of writers and contributors with you, leading this very strategic magnification of views on wine and food. How did your personal journey into publishing and writing begin, Meridith?
Well, I don't know how far back you want to go, but when I was about 12 years old, my sister was going to UC Berkeley, and I would send her these monthly newspapers that I would put together. And I always wanted to write, number one. And then I thought I always wanted to be a magazine publisher. I don't know where that came from. I also wanted to be a spy.
Okay.
So that, and I wanted to be a veterinarian, but it just was always in my vision. But eventually I got into radio and was behind the scenes as vice president of promotion for a couple of big Los Angeles radio stations. And from there had a little show of my own on restaurants. And then that progressed and got a job as an editor for a trade publication in Los Angeles called Patterson's Beverage Journal, a magazine that was around since 1941. It had a lot of iterations, and I worked there as I kind of BS'd my way into being an editor. I was never an editor before, and I didn't know anything about wine or spirits. But I had some friends in the industry who gave me a good
Background?
recommendation. Yeah.
Right.
And I ended up buying the magazine after 6 years of working there and turned it into the Tasting Panel magazine, brought it national, thanks to all the contacts that I had over those 6 years. And then that was in 2007. And then in 2013, when the Sommelier Journal went out of business, I bought that and turned it into the Somm Journal, went from 1,200 circulation to now over 65,000.
Amazing. Amazing. Now,
So
with all of that, your keen desire, sort of, that enthusiasm circulating through your blood, and it's all about wine and food. Did you take any? Do you love cooking, or have you taken any courses in cooking?
no,
Meredith?
I never even took a journalism course. I was a French and drama major in college. No, I think, again, marketing and PR, if anything, was my strength. And that's, how I really built my radio career. And that's how I started getting into more sales for the magazine that I eventually bought, because it's all about, being able to bring in the money and having a publication grow.
Yes.
But I do love to eat out. I love to eat. I love good food. And I do cook now more than ever, especially since the pandemic.
Wonderful. And what's is there any specific ethnic background in terms of food that you truly enjoy?
I do like Italian because I love pasta, and I love to try all those different sauces, and I love sauces. So my interpretation of anything from Asian fusion to I'm Russian background.
Oh, you're Russian background.
Yeah, my mom used to cook chicken Kiev. But I just kind of riff on a lot of different things that I like. But it's more about me going out to these restaurants and discovering the food there. But again, the food is just turned into really writing about wine and spirits, whiskey and tequila and all that now.
I saw that. Now, the Tasting Panel magazine, you've got so many different departments and areas, and there's so many stories about wine. What is it that you look for in a story to be considered when you want to say, right, we're going to print this. It's going to be in our publication.
Well, I think about our audience first. We're the only national, 100% national trade publication for the wine and spirits industry. Everybody else's competitors have gone digital, or there's the consumer magazines, the Wine Enthusiast, the Wine Spectator.
Yes.
We are 100% trade. So I have to look at what's relevant for the trade. That's our number one audience, the buyers, the wine and spirits buyers, whether it's restaurants or retail, hotels. And second in importance is reaching our distributors. What do the distributors want to read about? What's important? They take the magazine on the streets and use it as a marketing tool. But we also want to entertain and educate about the brands. So we want those stories to have that platform for that wine and spirit company that they can use to help sell their products in an educational format with facts. So again, we're in the business to be the heroes for the wine and spirits industry.
Oh, absolutely vital. And I think that that is a strategic role that you are really fostering and holding for all the distributors, because they need that independent voice. You know, a friend of mine who owns a winery in Argentina always told me, nobody's baby is ugly. So that means, you know, you are the independent person. So they can always relate to what you're saying, you know, because I think many of the people in the consumer industry, even business to business, I've never seen anyone come forward and say, well, our wine is not very good, or our spirit, you know, I would be rather dubious. So,
I always feel so bad for people when I have to taste something that I don't like. And I just, you know, they put their heart and soul and their money into it. It just, I really feel.
It's true. It's true, because when I'm tasting, and I certainly encourage our audience, they put their heart, they put their soul. It just happens that it hasn't touched that, just hasn't reached that level. So there's no need to denigrate, insult, or give them negative comments. Rather, encouraging ones are what I find. It hasn't reached this, John, but perhaps if you were, I might suggest this. And I think, yeah. So you and I are on the same page there, Meridith. Now, you mentioned that, you know, since your days on the radio with the major radio stations, KLSX and KABC, and you were also on the Santa Barbara News Press as a restaurant columnist, technology has surged ahead, changing the communication platform irretrievably. How has this shaped your vision for the magazines? Well,
people ask me that all the time, because why do you have a print magazine in a digital age? Well, when I was in radio was on fire. When then I started writing about restaurants, I didn't want to be a critic as so much as a storyteller. And we were just talking about brands not being good. And, you know, I didn't want to be a critic and hurt anybody's career. So the print magazine lends some kind of gravitas, some kind of authority, I think, especially when we have, you know, you have something that's circulated and it's been around and we have a good reputation, knock on wood. But we remain in print because our subscribers keep growing. I think, again, our competitors are not falling by the wayside, but they're going digital, and we're remaining in print and we're excelling at it. So I can't answer how technology is working with us, because we're almost working against it.
It seems that way. It seems that way. You know, and not only is it technology, but there is a generational change, you know, in the last, you know, decade, even more so if we were to go back 2 decades. What's been the most noticeable change you've witnessed, and the impact of this change, you know, in terms of buyers, in terms of tastes, in terms, I mean, I'm thinking of a 30-year-old now, they probably would prefer to have all their information on their tablet or their phone. Again,
they're subscribing. These young somms and young mixologists are still asking for our magazine. We have a pass along. So if we send it to a restaurant, you know, they might say, can I have some more copies, or here, I'm going to pass this copy along. So again, I don't know what the magic is that we're not on tap, you know, yeah, we have a digital presence. You can go to our website and read our magazine online anytime. You don't have to have it in your hand, but we're also free to the trade. No one's paying for a subscription.
Oh, it's a free
That's our business
subscription.
model.
It's a
That's our
free
business model.
subscription.
So you have to request it because the post office says that you have to have email or requesting by a certain percentage of people. But I think we're just this platform for brands that it seems more permanent than digital, if that makes any sense. Instead of going back to that website, you have that magazine in your library, or you look at it every month and see what's trending, what's new.
Right. Well, I must say you are definitely going against the current here, because most trade periodicals have changed.
Yes.
They definitely have. So congratulations on that achievement.
Thank
and
you.
I hope you have sustained growth, and may it grow even more stronger.
Appreciate that.
You are
I'm gonna get the way.
Sure,
I have
sure.
to.
You want to move that? No problem. Oh, beautiful. Now, you know, Meridith, we live in a world where we see changing events happening constantly. And I'm sure in the time that you've been in the magazine business, you've seen some less, more impactful. Now, in the Somm Journal, January 21st, 2022 edition, there was an article about the Court of Master Sommeliers adding new additions to the board.
Yeah.
As many readers know, the Court of Master Sommeliers Americas chapter has been rocked with the MS examination questions that leaked in the 2018 exams, and the removal and membership of certain Master Sommeliers, including the highly respected Fred Dame in November 2021. Now, there's been many articles out there. What do you think this is only the beginning of the change?
Oh, I hope not. But it's a sore subject. You know, a lot of my good friends were canceled, and Fred Dame was a legend. And if it wasn't for him, the court may not have emerged in the US as the highly respected organization that it has become. He had his transgressions, you know, and we all know that times have changed, and it was never acceptable for men to treat women in a certain way. We understand that too. And it was not a good sign of the times back then. But careers were ended long after these valued years, long after valued years of work that these guys have done. And some of the more malignant people who were canceled may have deserved it. But to go back 20 or more years and cite, you did this 20 years ago, and since then, you might have done a million wonderful things. That's a tough call, in my opinion. So is it the beginning? I hope not. Too many people have been frightened to do anything that would ruin their reputation now. And sadly, reputations are quite fragile, aren't they?
They are indeed. They are indeed. So I guess we will just wait and see what the future unfolds.
It's happening in so many places, in so many areas, not just our industry, as we know. And some of it's deserved, and when it's not, you know, it's
very hard.
It's cruel. It's cruel. That's a drink.
So yes. So we'll just wait and see what happens on that side. And another area, the San Francisco International Wine Competition is related to the Tasting Panel magazine, and it's been very successful. Now, recently, Lisa Peratti Brown, Master of Wine, who was the former editor-in-chief of the Wine Advocate, during an interview with Robert Joseph January on the 28th of January 2022 with Meininger's Wine Business International, talking about wine ratings, she said, supposedly reputable publications, ones that claim to be independent, suffer from numerous conflicts of interest. And then she continued to say that faith in wine reviews have been eroded to the point where buyers no longer know who they can trust. And this was considered to be a bombshell around the world of wine reviews. What are your thoughts?
Well, what Anthony Dias Blue owns the San Francisco competitions. He was my partner for several years. I bought him out about almost 2 years ago. So we're no longer, we're no longer part of that. My partnership is over with so we'll run the results for them in our magazine.
Right.
So, but on that note about Lisa Peratti Brown, here's our stance.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 trade publications. Again, 100% trade. The separation of church and state versus a consumer magazine is very different. We don't reach the consumer directly. We do reach the buyer. The wine and spirits brands ask us to score their products. They need these scores to help get placement in a lot of places.
Mm-hmm.
We're a service magazine for the industry. It behooves us to review and score for that purpose. We want these brands to sell because we want our industry to thrive and grow. I have about 8 people scoring and reviewing wines all over the country. And with some events, we bring in wine or spirits buyers themselves to write and score our wines. In fact, we have a new columnist. It's called The Candy Shop. It's Brian Candelario, and he is a wine buyer for a high-profile restaurant in San Francisco area. We taste hundreds of products a month. And again, it's up to the trade buyers, the distributors, the importers to use or not use these scores to sell the wines and spirits. But I can't even, if you were at the house and you'd see the hundreds of wines that get delivered here, not just, they want us to evaluate the wines. Somebody's got to give a comment on the wine. And if we're the respected group of people who are doing it, then so be it.
I think you've brought up an extremely pertinent point. You are a trade magazine. You're not dealing with the consumer. So the evaluation is different. And for those of us in the industry itself, we realize that. And very quickly, as soon as a wine or spirit touches our palate, we can give an assessment in terms of quality. Yeah, it's very quick. And
right.
Yes, whereas for the consumer, it's perhaps a different set of criteria. So
right. Most consumers don't even know what the Somm Journal and the tasting panel are, but the fact that the buyers rely, some buyers rely on us, but the brands, number one is the brands rely on us.
That's true. It's true. It's I think there has to be that differentiation for people to understand business and consumer. Now, we're living in a very globalized world, Meridith, and we have so many cultures in all parts of the world. You're a good example. You have a Russian heritage. You're in the United States. I'm Chinese, but I was from South Africa, and now I am in Canada. Now, most of the wine and food pairing advice in the past has really been mainly on sort of Western type of palates, not much in terms of, let's say, Indian, Japanese, Korean. Yet these countries constitute just under 50% of the world's population. Do you think there's going to be a trend where pairings and opinions will be based on their palates as well?
Oh, and I love that question. And yes, I have to say, yes. We employ a lot of editors who understand the nature of wine and food pairing. You name the city, we've got, if you look at either magazine, we've got columnists from every major city in the US. In fact, in the Phoenix area, the Scottsdale area, where the food scene's very diverse, we have 2 editors whose talents on food writing and pairing lead to so many options. Our managing editor in Denver started as a food writer. She was writing for Zagat and features kind of on purpose, those exotic food and wine pairings. Our print publication might be limited to the US, but the restaurants across the US are trending, as you said, towards many fusion ideas. And I think winemakers know this is happening and are offering that range. Again, you know, if a wine has great acidity, it's going to go with more foods than
Pretty much,
a
yes.
flabby, big red wine. So, or, you know, an oaky shard doesn't go with anything. So yes, I think we're exploring the exotic foods, international, and then a lot of stories are being geared now toward, but not even wine pairing, also, you know, spirits pairing
Yes.
with food too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many different wine regions coming up. I mean, China obviously is one particular market where the wine producing capacity and the number of vineyards is increasing. It's exploding, actually. But I don't think many people realize that it's not just, you know, Washington State, Oregon, California, you know, Five Fingers. There's actually wine made and spirits all over the United States.
All over the world, much
Yeah,
less the United States, of course. Yes.
that's true. Now, you know, Meredith, you are an inspirational figure, and I'm sure you've had many a fine wine and meal has passed your lips. What is your perfect three-course food and wine pairing?
Well, I thought about that. So my first course, I had to write this down. The first course is a baby lettuce salad with pears, avocado, and blue cheese.
Ooh.
And with that, I have a crisp Sauvignon Blanc. And some people are putting oak in their Sauvignon Blanc. That's a no-no for me. So we have to be absolutely no oak. Second course, confit of duck egg rolls, not spicy, with
Okay.
air fried mushrooms.
Air fried mushrooms, right?
Yeah, so I have an air fryer. And I love the way that mushrooms come out, especially when I season them very well. And with that, a garnacha from Cartagena, Spain.
Okay.
So it's bright fruit. The spice is actually in the wine, not the food. Course 3 is what I'm cooking tonight, spaghetti bolognese. And of course, I have to have my favorite, which is a bright but very earthy Barolo.
Oh, delicious, delicious. I think those are wonderful pairings that you have there. It's
I could go on and on.
oh yeah. Share another one with us. One more that you know, something that just touches your heart, Meredith.
Oh my goodness. Well, I love Chateauneuf-du-Pape. So if I had, I think what would be fun is barbecue beef ribs with Chateauneuf-du-Pape.
Yeah, it's got that spicy, you know, that black peppery finish to it, and it certainly would pair well and creates a new dimension. Now, do you enjoy Chinese food at all?
Yes, very, very, very much.
Okay,
yes.
what do you try with you know, with the Chinese food that you enjoy?
One of my favorite dishes, and I don't know if it's authentic Chinese, but it's
okay.
You know, American Chinese, is the shrimp in, it's like a, I don't even know, honey walnut shrimp.
Honey glazed, yeah.
Honey glazed shrimp, right. So I love something from the Alta Adige, something very like a Kerner or a Gruner Veltliner from Austria.
Yes.
Something really, really lean and mean.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also love what other Chinese, my favorite, I have so many.
Now something about Russia. There's got to be a Russian dish in there, given your
The thing is, my family moved to either France or America, so I speak French, but I don't speak Russian.
Oh, you speak French, and well, tell us about any particular French dishes. I mean, I think this is it's quite interesting for readers, especially someone like yourself who has such a vast experience of different cuisines.
Well, of course, moule meunière, you know, I love the mussels in a nice big heavy cream sauce. And again, you know, you kind of have to go with white wine for that. So maybe a Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley might be
Yeah,
fun.
Chenin Blanc, yeah. Would you say Chablis perhaps is a little bit too piercing?
Too steely. Yeah, too
Too
steely.
piercing.
And the
Yeah.
cream sauce would kill it. The Chenin Blanc has that little sweetness in it.
Yeah,
I think.
it's got that sweetness, that sort of roundedness to it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is true. Now,
No.
sorry, with all these wines that you've really tasted, has there really been any number of wines that you would say these are memorable, and I remember them?
You know that I never used to give 100-point scores. You're kind of back to scoring, but again, just it stays in your mind when you give a wine a 100-point score. And I gave 3 wines 100-point scores. They're all U.S. wine. No, 2 U.S. wines. One was Patrimony, which is the new single vineyard wine from the Dow family, that Daniel Dow, but it's apart from the Dow wines. It's its own winery, and it's made on the very top of Adelaide district, the mountain, Adelaide Mountain. It's stupendous, and gives Paso Robles such this new equity. The other wine that I gave a 100-point score to is the new Penfolds World of Wine of the World, where it's half Australia, half Napa.
Yes, I was reading about that one. Yes.
Yes, that. And Spotswood in Napa Valley was my Napa 100-point wine of the year. I just couldn't find anything but glory in it.
So what was it? Was it the, for you, the story,
texture,
the finish, texture
to me is number one. Of course, acidity and being able to pair with food, because I always taste my wines with food.
Has to be.
Yeah, it's not fair to anybody otherwise.
So, talking about food, Meredith, we want to ask you this question. Most wine critics and, food and wine pairing professionals like ourselves, we look at certain tastes and flavors, So we look at, is it salty? Is it sweet? Has it umami, or is it acidic? And the one that we often also include is chili. Is it spicy? Now, there are those that feel that spicy chili isn't a flavor. What are your thoughts?
I can't eat spicy food, so I'm such the wrong person to ask. And I always have to send those questions to somebody else. But if I am in a place where my palate would take it and I would be able to do it, I would say champagne.
Champagne.
I think champagne is kind of it's going to lead you anywhere you want to go with spice or questionable food.
I think that's a very sound choice, and it's one that I often recommend when it comes to spicy Sichuan peppers. Yeah.
I wish I could enjoy spicy food.
Another life, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps.
Now, talking about that, Meredith, what advice would you offer aspiring wine and food writers of the next generation?
Well, there are a lot of outlets right now, it appears, for aspiring wine and food writers. And I really don't know how hard it is to get published, as I've not personally looked for work in a long time, but I do get pitched a lot. But anyone can be a blogger and self-publish nowadays. I'm not trying to be mean by saying that, but
no, I think your words of advice would truly carry an enormous amount of weight, and so please do share.
Well, I do receive a lot of pitches, and most of them are not very original and not well thought out, especially when it comes to my audience. Sometimes I'll get 5 pitches from different writers on the same subject, because obviously a PR person is pitching them to write about it, or they went on a press trip. What I look for is someone who understands my audience, someone who says, what's trending right now, what distributors are saying right now, or I want to interview this new wine director at this really cool restaurant in Nashville. How many stories can you write about a wine region? You know, a winemaker who's going by biodynamic, or a new whiskey distillery. I don't envy the newcomer's position. I don't envy those people who are looking to be published. But we do have a new column that we started called Fresh Voices for those people who have never been published, who are somewhat in our industry or on the outskirts or wanting to be. And I'm working with a friend of mine who has an organization called Dream Big Darling, and it's a mentorship for women. So every month in either magazine, Somm Journal and Tasting Panel, we have a Fresh Voice column, and I just say, write what you want. And they'll always say, well, what should I write about? Well, is this okay? I say, I don't care. Write what's near and dear to your heart. Know my audience. You know, I again explain who the audience is. What do you think they want to hear? And I don't, you know, we'll edit it for grammar, but we just let them run with that. So if I had more pages to give for all these people who are pitching, but I probably should answer some of those pitches of, oh, wow, there's a new whiskey brand I want to write about, and say, stop. I don't need any more branding stories. We'll take care of that. The magazine will take care of that. You know, what do you have to say? You know, what, and I get a little bit fired up, as you can see. I'm a little emotional about it, because I wrote a letter from the editor, my last issue, of, you know, let's show up. Let's not just take an old idea. Let's be original. Let's show up and have a little bit more energy, and look into, you know, if you're going to send this idea to 15 publications on, you know, you think really someone's going to pay attention to you? Sorry.
No, yeah. Well, Meridith, you truly, through this engagement of offering, you know, those that have not been published, an avenue, an opportunity, you are really a mentor for those, and they may not appreciate it as much yet, but I'm sure that in their career, if they've had that opportunity to be permitted the privilege of being published in any of your magazines, your inspiration, interviewing you today, I can clearly see that this is very close to your heart, and you every beat of your heart, every sort of pulse that goes through, it is for the best intentions of this entire industry.
Really, I mean, I'm probably too. I just feel for people, and anybody who struggles in any way, anyone who's a good person who struggles in any way. I wish I could do a lot more. Wish I had the money to have some kind of a foundation, but
well, you know, I'm sure you are doing, and you have done. And if there's any way that our audience, if you have any way that you would like, I believe you should support, you know, the tasting panel and the Somm Journal. We've had the privilege of speaking to Meridith May today. And
well, if you're in the industry, anybody listening who's in the industry, we cannot ship overseas, but anybody in the US who would like, and who's in the industry, it's free. They do have to pay if they're not in the industry, but it's not very expensive. Well, and they can send me a note at mmay@sommjournal.com.
That's fantastic. So you all heard that. And I hope you become part of the Meridith May Express towards enlightenment in terms of wine, food, and all the good things that go with it. Meridith May, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us. On
you've been so kind. Thank you. It was good catharsis for me today.
Thank you so much, Meridith.
All right.
Please comment, like, share, or subscribe to our videos.